Hey, welcome to episode 3 of One More Rep with Coach Walker. I am your host, Coach Walker, and today we are visiting the final verdict of the case of our first episode, Brenner versus the NCAA, where he was seeking $100+ million in punitive damages from the NCAA for injuries he sustained during a workout in 2017, which resulted in him developing rhabdo. If you've been following the case or if you watch episode 1, so long story short, they lost the case. The jury did find the NCAA to be negligent, but did not award Brenner any of the $100 million that he was seeking in punitive damages for his injuries. So one of the ways I think that they lost the case is specifically what they were arguing was the NCAA well, let me back up here. I have it in my notes here. Is it this one here? Yeah, right here. So the legal team for Brenner, they were arguing that the NCAA acted with malice or showed a reckless and outrageous indifference to highly unreasonable risk of harm because there isn't a specific rule or bylaw regarding overexerting players during workouts. So for me, reading that, saying that they act in malice and showed outrageous indifference, that's going to lose. For me, if I was here now, I would say, okay, that's going to lose your case right there, because the overall purpose of the workouts, or the NCAA, of the football team, of the organizations, what do they call them? The member schools, the member associations, conferences, and all that, they're a business, regardless of whether you're talking to education, from the sports side of things, it's a business. So me acting in malice or with outrageous indifference or reckless disregard to your health and safety, it doesn't help my business. So therefore, I can find you to be probably negligent because there could have been some better things in place. But if you're saying acting in malice, I don't think that was the case. I think that even with the coaches that were involved, I think they may have been overzealous. But malice, malice is a strong place to go to say, okay, as a coach, I'm dedicating my time, my energy, sometimes my entire life to work with youth, young adults, if you're working with any level of amateur pro athlete, and say I'm going to do it with malice. And I just don't see that occurring, and that's a hard bar to clear when you're trying to prove that in a court case such as this one, where it boils down to the impact of, I think, a few workouts. I don't remember the exact number of workouts, but a handful of workouts. And again, they were definitely old school, definitely misguided, but malice, I think that going for that is where you lose the case at. So, but the other piece is, if you find them negligent, how do you not see him getting any punitive damages from that? Because you know that there's some level of guilt or some level of culpability involved there. So like, I don't understand how he doesn't get any money for it. Maybe not a full $100 million, but something that compensates him for the time lost, the injuries that he incurred. So it's just a lot of moving parts with that. There's just some more things to understand from a legal standpoint. Maybe there's a lawyer out there watching this that can give me some more input in the comments section or whatever, because I would love to hear your take on why there was no compensation for the plaintiff. And if you were the one arguing this case, would you have went for malice, or you would try to prove something differently? Because in my opinion, reading that part, I would have tried to go a different route and not try to prove malice, but find a way to talk about maybe why there isn't a bylaw, because there was that piece to where that's the other piece too. So they don't have the recommendations that they have in place, because the NCAA, they have, like, as they talk about in the article, like a 140-page document that talks about their health and safety, preventing injury, preventing death. But I think some of the documents that I did print off that I have here, you have preventing catastrophic injury and death in collegiate athletes. I think this is a 24-page document here, and it lists a lot of different things. It has a checklist that comes with it. So the checklist that it has is it has the same title, preventing catastrophic injury and death in collegiate athletes. And the first page is a checklist here where it talks about traumatic general, and then it kind of goes down a list. That was a checklist, yes or no. You answer these questions, and then you go on to specific things. Here you have collisions of helmeted sports, and then some other things some other things that are related to other sports as well. But this checklist, you can find it in this 24-page document here, and then there's one more document here that is the frequently asked questions here, and it kind of goes down what is the uniform standard of care policy, what is the origin of origin of that policy. So they have documents in place, but I think the caveat for a lot of it is these are considered to be recommendations and not bylaws, rules that everybody has to follow. So I think that caveat alone is basically a CYA kind of deal, cover your ass, because you have documents that spell out some things, but I guess since you don't make it a bylaw, it gives schools the leeway to do things on their own terms, and then it covers the NCAA to where they can still default back to saying you have athletic trainers, you have a medical staff, you have your strength and conditioning coaches. These are the professionals, and we let them make the decisions based upon what they feel is right and proper for their athletes at their school and their programs, which I understand, because the needs of the athletes at each school is slightly different. The needs of the sports are usually relatively the same, because you do your SWOT analysis, all of that stuff, or whatever your needs analysis as well. And football is football. Styles change. The focus, if you're a running team, passing team, whatever it looks like, those things change, or whatever, to like what the type of workouts you're going to look at. But as far as preventing injury, all of that stuff falls up under the same umbrella. You need to have your medical team in place. You need to have your protocols for the heat index, following the heat index, being outside when it's over a certain amount of the certain temperature versus humidity, preconditioning, bring it when players are like first coming into your program versus your players who have been in versus spring ball and all those types of things. You look at a lot of different things to where, okay, each program has some different things from a organizational standpoint, but there are some things across the board that are saying that should be standard. And so that was my argument in the first episode when I first talked about this, was that there needs to be like some basic guidelines that guides everybody, to where it takes the guesswork out of like what is the basic minimum standard of care, whether it comes to strength and conditioning, athletic training, medical coverage, all that stuff that falls up for that is universal to any sport. You should have the guidelines. I know from the last one, a guy, he was arguing with me about how the CSCS sucks or whatever, and he got hung up on that. And my whole point is, for any of this, I don't care if you require the CSCS, the USAW, whatever it is, have one, maybe two certifications that are the standard bearer, that everybody who comes into your program, they have to have this. Have, first and foremost, more lean into having a degree in the field, whether it be undergrad or master's or a combination of both. Have your degree. Then, okay, now you have your degree, have your standard certification, because like the ATCs, you have to be certified and you have this license, and while it might be you have to be licensed in each state that you practice in, you still have, okay, ATC, this is the test that you take, and that should be the same thing for strength and conditioning coaches. You should have your standard of how we should be certified across the board. There should be no gray area about that. But with the case, I kind of knew going into it that they might lose. I didn't think that they would win the $100 million. I thought they might get something out of it, which he did, because he did settle with the University of Oregon for $500,000. But the only stipulations of that settlement that have been released is that he had to dismiss his case against the coaches, the former head football coach Willie Taggart, and the head strength and conditioning coach, well, the assistant strength and conditioning coach at the time, what is his name? Irele Orderende, which he is down at Florida Atlantic, but he's suspended or he's been fired for something separate from this case that happened recently within the last year or two or whatever it looks like. But he had to drop his case against them. The other piece that came out in this case and the findings is that there were some real, what seemed to be, from reading them, some real apologies and some real heartfelt words that were given, that were expressed in the courtroom from the coaches, which it lets you know, like, I mean, there was no malice in the workouts. Like I said, they might have been old school, they might have been misguided, but there was never a point to where I thought, okay, that this person might have been operating in malice. Even though obviously we never got a chance to see the workouts, we never got a chance to like see video of anything that happened, but sometimes you feel like, okay, I can push somebody a little bit harder to get more out of them because I'm going to be that piece, that person that motivates them. It doesn't work out all the time, and you end up with cases like this. The biggest thing, like his lawyers said, like the lawyers for the plaintiff, Doug Brenner, said, is that they hope that this, what specifically they said, they hope that, but one of the things here it is. We hope this case is a shot across the bow to the NCAA, and that it will further the effort to protect student athletes from preventable injuries and death. To have a case of this magnitude decided on such a technicality is a tragedy. So hopefully the NCAA does take heed and they make the changes necessary to where they are preventing preventable injuries and deaths, but to where heat exhaustion deaths, things like that, those shouldn't be happening. Heat injuries, realistically, those shouldn't be happening, because again, when I was working at the high school level in Tennessee, back early 2010s, we had a summer where at 6 a.m. it was 85% humidity and the temperature was always already at 90 degrees, and we had 0 injuries with that, just because you have to be able to scale what you're doing. So that's the biggest thing, like learning from this case and really owning your craft as a coach, as strength and conditioning coach, and making sure that as sport coaches, you're being smart about what you're asking of your players, and you're listening to your medical staff and your strength and conditioning coaches to make sure that you're being smart about your play. I know the end goal is I got to keep my job, so winning is the goal for that. You're not employed if you don't win. You don't have a job if you don't win, but be smart about it, because you can be smart and scale your training and keep everybody safe. So with this case, the other thing that did come out for Oregon on the side when they made their settlement, what is it? One of the things that they did, and which is interesting, which I don't understand why this wasn't the case already, because I know this to be the case for a lot of schools already. The strength and conditioning coach now has to report to the director of performance, which instead of the head football coach, which is confusing to me, because that already makes sense. For if I'm the strength and conditioning coach, that means I'm part of the performance team. My supervisor should be the director of performance, which is the person I should report to, not the sport coach. I should have some contact with the sport coach 100%, but I should not have, that should not be my direct report as far as like things go with player performance and workouts. That should have been something that was in place already, but it's good that this case has led to that. The other piece that has led, I don't know if this case has led to it, but you see schools when they're posting jobs, like the University of Illinois, they have a job posted for a strength and conditioning coach, but most places they'll put strength and conditioning coach or head strength and conditioning coach or something along those lines. But specifically what the University of Illinois put in their job posting was certified strength and conditioning coach, and then the rest of it. So that's good to see, to where they're making it known. This is what we're looking for. No gray area. You're certified or not. If you're certified, apply. As obviously you got to meet the other standards or whatever, the other requirements. But they'll let you know this. We're looking for certified, not some in between thing to where you have some other certification and you're trying to get in the door. But bottom line is the case is over. It is something that should help future coaches, the sports going forward, to where coaches are more aware of what they're doing. They're being more cognizant and careful about the training that they're doing, to where hopefully it's more steeped in science rather than old school mentality and bro science, to where, okay, we need to get faster, so we're going to run more, or if you don't, or we're going to try to do some team building, so it's going to be more punitive. Training is to get better, make you more resilient on the field, bigger, faster, stronger, to where you are available and you're durable. You don't want to be out here doing things that are unnecessary that could lead to injury. Injury is always a possibility for whatever you're doing, but do the things as smart as possible to where you can be as safe as possible. Like, who is it? Mike Boyle talks about the minimal effective dose to accomplish what you're doing, and that's what a lot of people need to kind of lean into until they reach a point to where they are really good at what they do. But at the end of the day, I am glad this case has come to a final decision. I don't have an opinion either way as to like whether he should have got money or not gotten money. I think that he did the right thing in bringing a lawsuit, because it at least shines a light on the situation, and it's not and it takes it from behind the curtain of this is collegiate sports, to where, okay, it put it under the microscope to be examined and make people to really put people in a position to like really examine what's going on, basically clean up their mess, to make sure that get their books in order, to make sure that they're doing things the right way, doing things right by their athletes, because especially now with the transfer portal, players have the ability to move if they don't like what's going on, like what they're experiencing. So it puts schools in a different position, to where they now I think most of them are doing right by the athletes previously, but now to be proactive in every aspect of training, to make sure the athletes are getting the best and they're doing the best, and avoid situations like this. Because again, I think that most coaches do, but also there are a lot of athletes out there that have stories about coaches who they feel like didn't care about them or the next player on the team, and all they cared about was winning. They didn't care about the well-being of the player. But also on the flip side, you have those coaches out there that fully care about every athlete that they ever encounter. But yeah, we talked about the case. Interesting on both sides, to where the NCAA was found negligent, but they didn't award any money. But on the other side of the fence, University of Oregon, they settled out of court for $500K. So it does leave some questions, but at the end of the day, he at least got some money out of this situation. Everybody has there are new rules that might come up out of this, or at least new suggestions that might come up out of this. That you might get some bylaws, you never know. And schools are being more specific about saying, I want a certified strength and conditioning coach of some caliber. Hopefully we get a standard certification, either one or two standard certifications that are accepted across the board, that become the standard for the strength and conditioning community at the collegiate level. Hopefully that happens. Hopefully it happens at all levels, to where it happens at the high school level across the board, to where these are the one or two certifications that we accept, period, point blank. There's no green and there's no gray area. But hopefully get to that day. But this has been Coach Walker. This has been One More Rep. Thank you for watching. Remember, maximize, excel, improve, excel, train like you.